Buenas noches. Hi. Today I'd like to take some time to talk about the present progressive, which is one of the grammatical topics that all of you have to learn for this week. Let me start out by asking the question, ¿Qué está haciendo usted? Repeat after me. ¿Qué está haciendo usted? It means what are you doing right now? What are you doing right now? La agente de viajes está confirmando la reservación. La agente de viajes está confirmando la reservación, which means the travel agent is confirming the reservation. Confirmar became confirmando. Los clientes están esperando. Los clientes están esperando. The clients are waiting. The verb esperar became esperando. I have a few more examples here. ¿Qué están haciendo estas personas? ¿Qué están haciendo estas personas? What are they doing? Las chicas están corriendo en el parque. Las chicas están corriendo en el parque. The girls are running in the park. The verb correr changed into corriendo. Daniel está compartiendo un secreto con Sara. Daniel está compartiendo un secreto con Sara. Daniel is sharing a secret with Sarah. The verb compartir changed into compartiendo. As you saw in these examples, in order to express what is happening right now in Spanish, we use two verbs. Estar, conjugated to the subject, plus the present participle form of the main verb. The equivalent of the present participle in English will be the verb with the ing ending. Estoy pescando, which means I am fishing. Estoy is conjugated to the yo form, and the main verb, which is to fish, in its present participle form, which is pescando in Spanish. We are eating. Estamos comiendo. We take the verb estar and conjugate it to the nosotros form, and the verb comer changed into comiendo, which is a present participle form of comer. So now let's study how to make an infinitive verb into its present participle form. The present participle of regular AR, ER, and IR verbs is formed as follows. Hablar, which is an AR verb, you keep the stem, and then you add ando, A-N-D-O, and you come up with hablando. Comer, which is an ER verb, you cross out the ending ER, you keep the stem, which is com, and add I-E-N-D-O, yendo. And you come up with something like this, comiendo. Escribir, which is an IR verb, you keep the stem, and then you add I-E-N-D-O, which is the same ending as the ER verb, and you come up with escribiendo. So hablando would be speaking, comiendo would be eating, escribiendo would be writing. Atención! When the stem of an ER or IR verb ends in a vowel, the present participle ends in Y-E-N-D-O, and I call it three vowel rule in Spanish, which is a very useful spelling rule that you want to use throughout the Spanish vocabulary. For example, el infinitivo leer, to make it into a participle form, present participle form, you keep the stem and then you add iendo. By doing that, you end up having something that looks like this, leyendo. Oír, you keep the stem, which is the O, and add iendo. Then you come out with something that looks like this, oyendo. Traer, tra is the stem, and then you add iendo at the end. You must stop for a minute and examine your spelling here. If you look at leyendo, you have three vowels in a row, E, I, E. And same combination is seen in oyendo, O, I, E. And same in trayendo, A, I, E. In Spanish, for some reason, we don't like to have three vowels in a row. So what we do is whenever we have three vowels and the second vowel is an I, we turn that into a Y. So instead of iendo, you would add yendo, and you come up with something that looks like this, leyendo. As you can see, the I changed into the Y. Oyendo will be oyendo, and trayendo will be trayendo. There is very subtle difference in the pronunciation between leyendo and leyendo. However, when it's written, leyendo, written like this, looks very wrong. Don't forget to change that I into a Y when you are writing. There's one more detail that we should keep in mind as we convert our infinitive verbs into the corresponding present participle forms. And I want to start out by introducing what I call the restaurant verbs to you. Let's examine the verbs that I have on the screen. Seguir, which means to follow. Pedir means to order, to ask for. Servir means to serve. Repetir means to repeat, and decir means to say. I call these verbs restaurant verbs because when you go to a restaurant, you do these things or you see other people do these things. You follow the waiter, you order food, and the server or the waiter will repeat your order, and then they serve the food, and the food is so delicious and they had a great service. You say thank you. There's another common thing that they have, which is their ending. If you look at these verbs carefully, you know that they all end in IR. And another commonality that they have is that these verbs, when they are conjugated in the present tense, they're all stem changing verbs. If you go back to chapter 4, you'll remember what I'm talking about. When we conjugated seguir in the present tense, we turned the E into an I, and we had sigo, which means I follow. Same thing for pedir. Pedir turned it into pido, and servir, sirvo, repetir, repito, decir, y digo. The reason why I'm reminding you of what we did in chapter 4 is because what we are learning today will be a continuation of what we did in chapter 4. When you have these restaurant verbs that are stem changing and that they end in an IR, you must keep the new vowel even when you convert the infinitive into its present participle form. So for example, what are you doing right now? Oh, I'm at a restaurant. I'm following the waiter to be seated. Let's say that's what you want to say. Then instead of siguiendo, you must say siguiendo. So you'll say something like, yo estoy siguiendo al mesero. Pedir. Estoy pidiendo comida. Servir. Sirviendo. Estoy sirviendo la comida. o el mesero me está sirviendo la comida. Repetir becomes repitiendo. Decir will be diciendo. Okay, so I'm going to repeat one more time. The IR verbs, IR stem changing verbs, have a stem change in the present participle. Seguir, siguiendo. Pedir, pidiendo, etc., etc. This rule will apply to all the IR stem changing verbs in Spanish, which include dormir and morir. Dormir is an IR verb and it is a stem changing verb in the present tense. If you go back to chapter 4, you'll know what I'm talking about. We conjugated dormir to yo duermo. As you can see, there was a change in the stem. The vowel O turned it into UE. When you turn dormir into its present participle form, you must keep the U of duermo in the stem and say durmiendo instead of dormiendo. Okay? And same for morir. This is a new verb, but I'm just using it as an illustration. Morir is an IR verb, and let me tell you that this is also a stem changing verb. That's why, we say muero or me muero. When you turn morir into its present participle form, you keep the U in the stem and say muriendo. And doesn't matter what verb it is, if it's an IR verb and it's a stem changing verb in the present tense, you will have to follow this rule. Okay, and this is just more examples. Preferir, it's an IR verb and it's a stem changing one. Preferir, it will be prefiriendo. Conseguir will be consiguiendo, and dormir will be durmiendo. Okay, if you understood the explanation, then test yourself to see if you can do this. And this is one of the assignments that I have assigned on Enlinea. And I just wanted to remind you that you really need to follow the directions to receive full credit. Let's read the instructions. Create complete sentences by putting the verbs in the present progressive. Please remember the present progressive. The present progressive is a grammatical structure that's used to talk about what is happening right now. The first item has been done for you. So let's look at the first example. Mis amigos / descansar en la playa. So what we want you to use, what we want you to come up with will be, my friends are resting at the beach. Mis amigos están descansando en la playa. Mis amigos están descansando en la playa. So mis amigos están descansando en la playa. My friends are resting at the beach. Number 2, nosotros practicar deportes. We are practicing sports. So you have to come up with something like nosotros estamos practicando deportes. If you put nosotros practicamos deportes, then the computer will mark you wrong because you are not following the directions. In the directions it says you must use the present progressive, which is the combination of estar and the present participle of the verb that we gave you. There are more examples, and I just want to remind you of the instructions that you need to follow the directions. It says, Alfredo's Spanish class is preparing to travel to Puerto Rico. Use the present progressive of the verb in parentheses to complete Alfredo's description of what everyone is doing. So for number 1, yo estoy investigando la situación política de la isla is the correct answer. If you put yo investigo la situación política de la isla, then again you are not following the directions, okay? And same here on number 2, ¿qué están haciendo? You have to use the present progressive to describe what each one of these people are doing. When you pair up with a partner, you'll be asked to use this exercise to complete your homework. And let me again remind you that you have to use the present progressive to respond to your classmates' questions. So for example, at 8 a.m., student 1, hola Andrés, It is 8 o'clock in the morning. Son las 8 de la mañana. And you have to ask, ¿qué estás haciendo? Which is, what are you doing? And the estudiante 2 will have to say, estoy desayunando, estoy durmiendo, estoy manejando, etc., etc. Everybody will have a different answer, but make sure to use the present progressive form in your responses to get full credit. Okay? Okay.